Hello, and welcome to A More Intelligent Tomorrow. A wide-ranging exploration of the potential impact of AI on the world around us, as envisioned by the future heroes of the human and machine intelligence revolution. Can we build an AI co-pilot for life and death decisions? We'll discuss this and more with Dr. Zain Khalpey on today's episode. And now, your host, Ben Taylor.
So I'm really excited for you guys to meet Dr. Zain Khalpey. I actually met you at an AI conference that I was speaking at, and you must have been one of the only physicians crazy enough to fly out there and hang out with all these introverts. And so a lot of physicians I've met and interacted with, they're not that technical when it comes to AI machine learning. And so I love your backstory here.
Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Why are you working with artificial intelligence? Why did you even go down this journey? Why didn't you just kind of stay with the herd of the rest of the physicians and just focus on what you do well?
I fell in love with the total artificial hat because it was complementary to biology. It was beautiful. And I thought to myself that if you could not have to be on immunosuppression, you'd be better off having an artificial hat that could actually prolong your life and improve the quality of life. And frankly, all the artificial hats that I did got me really excited about how can we get better? How can we improve? And to the point where, how can you predict? And so I always loved, the gadgetry and the gizmos, and to my wife's detriment. And when we were in Hawaii last year, I just got so frustrated with having to tell somebody my own idea and translate that into something formulaic to get, whether it's an app, whether it's an algorithm on to determine a certain function. So I decided to just surf the web and find a course to learn how to code myself. Because what I learned in my PhD is that if you don't do the bench work, you will never know what will go wrong, and you would never be able to find the solution for a problem. And if you can't do it yourself, how can you expect somebody else to do it if you can't tell them what you really want in their language? That's when I was fascinated by machine learning, because I thought to myself, now's our time. Now is the time to translate this with patience. And how about if we can predict what would happen and use machine learning or artificial intelligence to augment medical decision making, to make it better than what it is right now, and do it properly?
Part of me reacts to that thinking that you're a wolf in a hen house in a good way, because you can finally fix everything. And maybe before we talk about how some of the things you're working on that could fix the issues we have, I think it'd be good to educate people about some of the problems that exist in healthcare today when it comes to data.
Medical privacy or medical data with HIPAA is powerful and it's appropriate. And I think it should be done, but it should be done in the proper way with the utmost transparency. But also to be regulated in a creative way.
Yeah.
De-identifying process, I think, can be simplified, and I think that it can be used in a healthier way. Sometimes institutional review bodies or review boards, they actually move through things very, very quickly, and they get it. They understand that there's a lot of data at different levels, and if the concept of what you're trying to uncover is appropriate as deemed by your peers, nobody's going to stop you from doing something. But you do want to do things in the right way. If you don't do things in the right way, you don't have credibility. You don't have the legitimacy, if you like, to publish in peer-reviewed journals, but not like dinosaur institutions publishing because of the sake of publishing. That is, I think both you and I often agree that that's more harmful than good, because all it is, it's just intellectual masturbation. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that it stifles creativity. And I think that if we can't be creative in those environments, you have to leave. And like I did, machine learning can if done in the right way, will take medicine to another level. Because right now, the reason why it doesn't work from the industry side is because you haven't got people cross-fertilizing in the right arenas.
Yeah.
It's not just one person that can change things. It's the whole team. And you've got a team right now recording this because that's how it is. And you wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for them. And vice versa. I couldn't operate today with 9 people in the room as part of my team for that one patient. And that requires people to think the same way, be on the same field, and row in the same direction.
Yeah, there's so many things to pull on in that answer. One of the things you mentioned on that I really liked is this concept of impact scaling, because we talk a lot about that. We talk about this in software and in machine learning. With SaaS, you can take an expert like yourself and you can make a huge impact. And I guess maybe to get a little personal, what is the legacy that you hope to leave, and what is the impact if your wildest dreams come true with the work that you and Amina are working on?
If we build a legacy of using technology to make better decisions in medicine, and actually prior to that, even predictive healthcare, then I think we're really getting to a better place. And think of all those people in developing countries who don't have the resources we do, but could have simple approaches and algorithms that we could automate with machine learning to improve their life in different languages or whatever. I think the one thing that COVID has taught us is that it's the true equalizer, isn't it? It doesn't matter how much money you have. It's about your health, and it's anybody can get it, whether you are the son of a president or you're a famous actress. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to be solely focused on to make better and protect is your health. And if you can't use machine learning or artificial intelligence to improve that, then you're worse for it. And I think if we can make a millimeter difference in that in our life, then I think it's a life well lived, and it's worthwhile for the sweat and everything else that we make a difference to every patient. And the patient's lives are important, but if we could do that before we even meet the patients, that would be something really cool. I haven't actually thought of that question that deeply, but I hope that answers some of it.
Oh, yeah, that definitely answers it. The other thing that response is hitting on is there's so much confusion around COVID, and it's become very political. You work on the front lines. You deal with COVID. You understand it better than anyone I know. What is COVID to you? What does it look like? Is it like a cold? Is it like anything you've heard of? Anything you've seen?
What happens with COVID is that your lungs actually get filled up with inflammation, and then even though they're soft, it's like trying to blow up a rubber tire with a straw. And what happens is it becomes harder and harder, and you're not feeling symptomatic because you can still, it's soft, so it's compliant, and you can get rid of your oxygen or your carbon dioxide. As you get rid of the carbon dioxide, you don't feel that driver for breathing is not making you short of breath. So you feel normal. And that is called silent hypoxia, because you're not getting enough oxygen into your body, but you're able to increase your respiratory rate subconsciously and exhale that CO2. So if you do that, you're in this, well, I'm not symptomatic. I can still use the phone. I can still, go for a jog, except that you're actually breathing a little harder to get more oxygen in. And your heart's beating a little faster to compensate. So those subtleties are what we could uncover in people who've got pre-symptomatic COVID.
What's a day in the life of a physician fighting COVID today?
The severity, the acuity, and the people are scared to come in. So as they're scared to come in to the hospital, they are getting worse at home. So they're being more hypoxic at home, lack of oxygen. So this 45-year-old guy comes in waiting to be seen by the doctor in the ER, but actually arrests in the ER because he's got no oxygen, and he's at the tipping point where his heart can't handle it because he's gone into respiratory or lung failure. And that's because his CO2 just built up so much it arrested his heart. And so you're waiting to that extreme where 80% of people who have symptoms will likely have mild symptoms, but it can escalate over the course of 10 days to 14 days. And if it escalates, you may be on a ventilator. And if you're on a ventilator, 80% of that time, you may not get off that ventilator, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your comorbidities. If you have no comorbidities, you have a 60% chance of still being on that ventilator. And then the ventilator causes damage to your lungs. And that damage involves, well, you need to breathe, so you need to take a deep breath. So what is that? That's volume. So as you take a deep breath in, the ventilator shoves air in and it blows your lung. But it's got to have a driving force. So that driving force is the pressure. If you put that pressure into the lung, it can crack and fracture the little air sacs, causing barotrauma. And then it's not natural to, you and I breathe like in waves, but a ventilator breathes in boxes. So you go.
So is that more stress? Is that more stress?
And so the asynchrony of a machine making you breathe can cause what they call biotrauma. And that's the asynchronousness of ventilator. So by day 7 of being on a ventilator, that toll, along with the scar that's developed because of the pathology of the disease, makes your lung more susceptible to being scarred for a longer period of time. So whether you live or whether you die, you will have long-term sequelae. It's not like the flu, where most people get better and can lead a normal life. This is going to damage us. And so this is a nasty disease. And so we're trying everything I can. I've got an ECMO program, and we're trying to ECMO. What is ECMO? ECMO is an artificial heart and lung on the outside of the body. And what we can do is we can take the blue blood out of the patient because their lungs are not working, and you have an oxygenator or an artificial lung on the outside of the body, and that feeds back the red blood into the body. And so I'm hoping to create a walking program where you can be upright, have the ECMO, and we're trying to use machine learning techniques to predict who would get a different type of pipe that goes into your heart, because 20% of patients who have COVID, it affects your heart. And in terms of myocarditis, and you're prone to having abnormal heart rhythms and possible sudden cardiac death.
How do you think of innovation and experimentation when you're dealing with innovation in healthcare? Maybe what are the emotions around it? What's your thought process?
What happens with innovation is that you've got to build on what you've done, and you've got to do that 1% better every single time. If you don't have that mindset to improve, but learn from your mistakes, that will never drive innovation. So I don't have the fear of failing. I think it's liberating. I think it's liberating to fail because, and I tell my kids this, because you will learn something from it to the point where you will do it better next time. And I feel that's how I do it in my operating room. That's how we come up with new ideas about how to improve things, how to shave a few seconds when the heart is stopped, and then to reanimate it. Those precious little seconds can actually be the death of the kidneys, the heart, or the lung, or the patient. And so you haven't got a lot of time to piss around. You've got to really know what you're doing. So if you're at that edge where you've got somebody like this guy who was 38 years, he's got a wife and kids, and that's on my back. That's on my team's back. That's at the beginning of the case. I always tell the story, not your traditional timeout story, but your real story about who is this guy, and this is what's at stake. And every stitch, you think of the emotions of the family member who was with them. You know that they've got young kids, and you know that that could go away. And so if you don't do it right, the stakes are high. You don't pressure yourself to paralysis. You pressure yourself to innovate, to do better, to make sure that he'll get home to his kids.
So for physicians that maybe don't understand the power of technology or how AI could augment or assist what they do, maybe I'll go back to the analogy of a co-pilot. So if you could have a Jarvis co-pilot.
You just choose Jarvis because he was British.
Well, you're British, right? For someone like you to trust it, what does AI need to do, or what are the gaps that you think need to be fixed before you would appreciate an AI Jarvis?
The co-pilot needs to be taught and graduate with time to capture the temporal events that have happened in the past, and then use the analytics in a reinforced way, and I'm leading you in a reinforced way to learn how to be organic with making that decision to be a good co-pilot. Because if something happens to me, you got to take over. But that's very, very in the far future. Right now, we've got to think about how can we make better decisions together. How can we save the crew? How can we land the plane without a crash landing and avoid the hurricane in our way?
Part of me sees AI as being an evolutionary step or extension to yourself, because your mind has not evolved to comprehend 5 hours worth of waveforms and to catch a needle in the haystack or something. There's HRV analysis and there's some basic tools to try to pull some of that stuff out, but I think the things you've already hit on, what is the future with reinforced learning? What is the future with some more powerful deep learning components where you actually can be augmented with a sensory tool that humans do not have?
It's how we direct it that would be critical. It's how we control the time and the use of that tool that eventually will morph into an indispensable category for the future. And I think, Ben, it's already here. We just have to grab it, throw it up in the air, and I'm sure it'll land us on our feet. And so I can't see myself not doing this in my lifetime. And so I think us using the rationality of our own thought, our own training, and our own expertise to say, Jarvis, you're talking crap. Or, Jarvis, what about this? And if you could reinforce that learning with them, and they could then be your best friend at taking you through the course of your career, you'd be much better off in terms of making better decisions for your patients. And so I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for machine learning. I'm excited about how we can automate it into our life in a real way.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I was a huge fan. Anything we can do to help during this transition or this journey as you really get ready to disrupt healthcare, I think, in a major way. We're there for you.
Ben, this is really nice because it cross-pollinates into what you do and what I do, but also talking about things we both love and how it can actually improve people and improve not just the teams that we work with, but how can we actually bring together resources to and patients to actually improve the things that we love. And at the end of the day, I think it's not just one person making a difference. It's bringing the mindsets together to build a force that would change or create a new reality. And I think this is our time. This is our time.